A special air quality statement for Toronto. It ended today, but smoky conditions continue. And smoke from forest fires has impacted most of southern Ontario for several days. Here's a live look at the city right now. So the reduced air quality, it could lead to eye, nose, and throat irritation, headaches, or a mild cough. So for more on the health impacts of the smoky conditions, we're joined by Dr. Alan Grill, Chief of Family Medicine at Markham Silva Hospital. Dr. Grill, thanks a lot for joining us. So first off, with these conditions like they are right now, if people just have like a cough that they haven't, had before, should they be worried?
So, I think people need to be aware that right now, because of the wildfires that you talked about, it causes more air pollution and it decreases the air quality. They should be aware of the fact that those environmental conditions can sometimes lead to symptoms. And you mentioned a couple just before, these particles get into your lungs, so you can sometimes have trouble breathing. You start to cough. They can make your eyes very irritated. They can start to be, watery. If it gets in your nose, you can feel like your nose is always stuffed up, right? And, it can cause fatigue and headache. So these symptoms are very common when the air quality is poor. And so I think people need to be aware of that. And I think most importantly, they need to be aware of when to check the air quality index. There's a website and what to do depending on the number of that index in terms of how much time they're going to spend outdoors.
Okay, along those lines, Dr. Grill, look, it's summertime, school's out, kids do not want to be, maybe they want to stay inside and play video games or whatever, but they want to go outside, run around. How much time should parents or caregivers say, okay, look, you've been outside long enough, come inside, the weather's not, or the air quality is not that great?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things to that. So number one, the people that are most at risk when the air quality is poor are, sort of really young kids, like, infants and young kids, because their lungs are still developing. Seniors, especially those that have chronic medical conditions, particularly heart and lung conditions, like, chronic bronchitis, people with asthma, like those people are at higher risk because of the poor air quality. And then obviously people that are pregnant are at higher risk, and people that tend to have a job outdoors. So these are the people that have to sort of think more about it. I think the other thing too is to be aware of the air quality index, right? So if you go onto the Environment Canada website, I think today in Toronto it was a 3, which is pretty good. It's on a scale of 1 to 10. The higher the number, the worse the air quality and the more risk people have of getting these symptoms that we talked about. So I usually tell my patients, if the number is greater than 6, you might want to spend more time indoors, especially if you're in one of those high risk groups. The numbers between 4 and 6, maybe just limit the amount of time you're going to spend outdoors, especially strenuous activity. If it's lower than 4, most people can go outside and they might notice the haze, but they probably won't get any symptoms. So it's a combination of, are you at high risk, and what's the actual index saying, and then you can modify your behavior so that you don't get these symptoms and it doesn't impact your health.
And Dr. Grill, for people who are relatively healthy, if they like to be active outdoors, riding bikes, going running, how much more difficult are these conditions for them to be out there, taking into consideration the humid X and then the air quality?
Yeah, so I think it's a very personal decision. Like I really like cycling, and it's a social thing. It's good for physical exercise, right? It gets me out. But when the air quality is really poor, if I'm riding my bike and I find that there's this haze or it's like it can be difficult to breathe, then that's no fun. Then getting all those positive things out of exercise, you're not going to get them when that air quality is poor. So I would say it's a very personal decision. Again, people should know, what are your risks? What's the air quality index? In general, if people are feeling good and they're outside, even when there's some of these factors going on, it's not going to be that detrimental to their health. But like I said, there are some people that have to be really careful. Lots of my patients, young and old, that have asthma or lung conditions or heart conditions, they're going to feel it more. And we know that when the air quality is poor, we actually see more hospitalization. So people with those chronic illnesses, they really have to pay attention every day. And again, it's not going to be every day of the summer. You got to pick the days where the air quality is better. Spend as much time outdoors as you can because of all the reasons you said. It's healthy, it's social. But on the days where the quality index is poor, be a bit more cautious, and that's just going to be better for your health overall.
Yeah, even though that list of what if questions is still there, still long, we're out of time. Dr. Alan Grill, Chief of Family Medicine at Markham Silva Hospital. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.